Riley Greene falls a few spots in MLB Network's top 100 players ranking as he continues to be one of the biggest talking points for the Tigers' 2026 season.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, January 19th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome all. Happy Monday. Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day, an important day in our country where we get to acknowledge one of the more important figures in the history of our country. So have a great MLK Day. Today, we will discuss a few things. We'll end the show by kind of talking a little bit about MLB news. We'll talk Kyle Tucker. We'll also talk Bichette, kind of the effects that those moves might have on the Tigers, which there is kind of an angle there. But we're going to spend a bulk of the show talking about Riley Greene. We've teased kind of a Riley Greene breakdown or deep dive for, it feels like weeks at this point. And I don't mean to like build it up or make it anything more than what it is. It's just we've always had like more prominent and time, what's the word? Time, not constraint, whatever. More things that were prevalent and more important at time sensitive. That's what I was thinking of. So today we had a really slow weekend. So today we'll talk a little bit more about Riley Greene, and it kind of makes sense to talk about him now as well, because MLB Network officially has ranked Riley Greene as the 57th best player in Major League Baseball. They do this list of the top 100 every January. They've been releasing 10 a day for the last, 4 or 5 days. And I think my first thought at this was that the Tigers probably don't have any more players except for Tarik Skubal remaining. I'd imagine that this means Skubal's the only top 50 player, unless they're really high on Glaber, or unless they are really big maybe on Dylan Dingler. But like Harry Carpenter's already been ranked, and I don't think there's anybody else on the pitching side that's going to be that high. So here we are. I think it's probably just Tarik Skubal remaining for your Detroit Tigers. Deep diving into Riley Greene himself. Let's do it. Hey, let's do it. I think he's one of the hardest players to rank if you had the job of an MLB Network list maker based on his 2025 season. I truly believe that, because everything was so extreme. Everything was either amazing or terrible. I mean, we'll obviously break it down more in depth as the show goes on, but every aspect of his game was an extreme. It was either extremely good or extremely terrible. And I think that that's really hard with very little middle ground. It's hard to kind of pinpoint value-wise where that falls going forward and where it falls even on the year that was, right? Even if you're just ranking, where he should have been in the 2025 season. So he had the most strikeouts in the history of the Tigers organization for a single season. And his walk rate also went down significantly. He went from about a 4-win season in 2024 to a 3-win season in 2025. Yet last year was also just his age 24 season, and he hit 36 home runs and 111 RBIs at that age. That is not common practice. So let's start with 2025 before we get to talking about what we can maybe expect in 2026. First off, what everyone wants to talk about is the strikeouts. The K rate skyrocketed, and it already was pretty high. So that's like a testament to just how high it was. His K rate was over 30%, almost at 31%. You simply cannot be a truly elite of the elite player and strike out one every 3 times you step in the batter's box. And I think that it's not good enough and it needs to be addressed. Don't think there's really too many people out there that are denying that they want his strikeouts cut. Now, that being said, Riley Greene's K rate is never going to be quote unquote low, and it doesn't need to be quote unquote low. I want to make it clear, and I want people to understand the difference between his K rate lowering versus like him turning into Luis Ariz with power. Like that's just never going to happen. There's a reason why that just doesn't exist in baseball. That would be incredible. Aaron Judge strikes out a lot. Still, what did he win the batting title? Batting average was like 330 last year. Strikes out quite a bit. Ohtani strikes out a lot when compared to the rest of baseball. Like Riley Greene can reach his true ceiling without his K rate being astronomically low. The thing that those with higher, first off, his strikeout rate was higher than anybody I just mentioned. So again, it needs to be cut multiple percent, but there's a difference between lowering it and making it, better than league average. The thing that those players that I just mentioned, however, do very well, along with maybe having higher strikeout rates than league average, is they walk a lot. Ohtani and Judge, they walk a boatload. Some of the highest walk rates in baseball. Obviously, Juan Soto is like the pinnacle of that, right? And for whatever reason, Riley Greene, along with his K rate going up 4 or 5%, his walk rate went down 4%. It was 11% in 2024. That's really good. That's a great number. Well above league average. You're talking top, quarter of baseball. To 7%. That's below league average. That is a huge difference. Kyle Schwarber's another great example, right? Somebody that swings and misses, hits a ton of home runs, strikes out a lot, hits, I think this past year he hit like 230 or 240, hit a ton of home runs though, and drew a ton of walks. And that's a trade-off you will take when you're walking and hitting 40 plus home runs. So why did the strikeout rate go up and the walk rate go down? Two things really jump out at you. One, he was way worse against fastballs this year than he was in 2024. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I think one of the biggest points is this is very simple, a very, very simple concept. He just swung the bat way more. And I know that sounds super like, I don't know, like dumbed down maybe or whatever, but sometimes it is that simple. He literally just swung way more than he ever has in a single season in his life at like any level. Now, both of those things together, not hitting fastballs like you're accustomed to and swinging at everything, not a recipe for very good peripherals and projective stats and analytics and whatever. Let's dive deeper into that. I want to go over his swing rate, chase rate. We'll do all that kind of stuff too. And then we'll get into kind of the numbers on fastballs and breaking balls and that kind of good stuff as well. All right. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack awaiting them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply directly to the bets you like the most. You open your profit boost pack the first thing on game day and you see what boosts you want to apply. The boost gives you more juice on bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. So you make your picks, you apply the profit boost, Get even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And we will, of course, be back on Wednesday as we get closer and closer to pitchers and catchers reporting here in April. Also, be sure to check out the Locked On Everydayers Club. You can just visit lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer, and you will get an opportunity to become an Everyday Club member, where you can get access to a Discord server with other hosts in it, myself in it, other listeners in it, talking about all things Tigers and general sports. Also, you get ad-free episodes and more, so be sure to check that out today. Today, we talk about Riley Greene and finally kind of break down his season that was and what we can expect from him going forward. I want to get back on my, the podium here a little bit in regards to swing rate. So this is this is not like swing rate when, the ball's in the strike zone or the ball's out of the strike zone or when it's a full moon on a Tuesday. Like, this is literally just swing rate. How often he swings based on how many pitches he saw, rather. Year by year in his career. Rookie year, 45%. Year 2, 47%. Last year, 2024, I should say. That's year 3 for him. 44%, the lowest of his career, and it was also his best season statistically. 2025, his swing rate was 52.6%. This is not just a small bump or something I bring up just for the fun of it. Okay, I don't usually just bring up how often people swing the bat in breakdowns, okay? But that is an 8% increase. That's remarkable. The difference in that, just for the record, MLB league average is 47%. He was 3% lower than league average in 2024. And in 2025 was 5.5% over league average. Not only that, 52.6% is the 20th highest swing rate in all of baseball. Only 19 people in the sport swung the bat more frequently than Riley Greene did. And that is completely different, a 180 from what he had been doing his entire career up to this point. First pitch swing percentage, just how often he swings at the first pitch of an at-bat. 30% for most of his career, 41% in 2025. That is astronomical. Why are you possibly approaching 50% in terms of first pitch swing rate? And I think the most important point to drive home here is it would be one thing if he was doing that and the results were following. This is swing rate in balls in the strike zone. Okay? That's all it is. How often he swung the bat at every single pitch that was in the strike zone in the 2025 season. 73.6%. You want to swing at pitches in the strike zone. And that is the highest in-zone swing rate of his entire career. Yet, his in-zone contact rate was 76%, and that is comfortably the lowest in his career. Balls in the strike zone. He's swinging more and making contact less. He's no longer looking for his pitch or looking for pitches to drive. He is just hacking. To go from a guy that swings less than MLB average his entire career to be in the top 20 players in swing rate just in one season is astronomical. He also got way less productive against fastballs, which makes sense because most fastballs are in the strike zone, right? And he did not make contact he made contact with more than half still, but far fewer than he usually does. Now, the trade-off here is he improved greatly against breaking pitches. He obliterated sliders. His numbers against sliders are like Barry Bonzian, okay? Now, he still swung and missed at like 40% of them, but the ones he did hit, he absolutely crushed. His slugging percentage against fastballs dropped 100 points. It went from 565 to 465. His batting average against all fastballs, this isn't just four seams. This is four seams. This is cutters. This is sinkers. This is anything that is technically a fastball. Batting average went from over 300 against those pitches in 2024 to around 260 in 2025. Now, there's a couple of other more fairly obvious things that everybody has noted. The OPS against lefties was around 700 the previous 2 years combined, just a hair under, like upper 690s, lower 700s for most of those 2 seasons. It was 620 last year. Again, a testament to all those things we've already talked about, which is why he got pinch hit for in a big moment against Cleveland, I think it was, when a lefty was on the mound. I think that was the wild card round. Now, a lot of people bring up the uppercut swing, right? He had quite literally the most uppercut swing in all of baseball. That is measured. The angle or tilt of his bat path was quite literally the most inclined in the entire sport. 45-degree tilt. 2023 and 2024, it's not number one on the list, but it's still like top 5 pretty much every year. I don't subscribe to this as much as a lot of other people do. There's a lot of really good hitters that have flat swings and have, don't really do an uppercut at all. Different type of hitters, obviously, but plenty. And if you look at the players that have the big uppercut swings, there's plenty of really, really good hitters littered throughout that list. So I think that's more of just like your swing path that you're trying to optimize and your body type even, and like how your body moves, etc. It's all about just finding which one works for you. Now, he will clearly always be somewhat of an uppercut, and like maybe we can work with him to go from 45 degrees back to like 42, 43. Maybe that's an adjustment that does change a lot for him. But again, I'm not as worried about that as other people just because of the track record of plenty of other people with big uppercut swings. His is aggressive, don't get me wrong. And if he changed it, I wouldn't be mad. But I think it's possible for him to maintain. So we've been kind of like tearing this dude apart all show. He's still really good. And he has, I think, still the highest ceiling of any position player that's currently on the roster. He was top 10 in all of baseball in RBIs last year. I mean, if he plays a full 160 to 162, I think that he could have a 40-plus home run season. He was only 4 away from that last year despite the struggles. And we haven't had that on this team in ages. He's a good defender at the corner. Really quickly, his arm was terrible last year, which is so weird because it's always been a league average arm, and then last season it was awful. So not really sure what happened there, but if we could fix that, that'd be great. Let's get back on track with the arm value. I think this season was kind of, it was a good highlight of everything that Riley Greene is at this point in his career. Pre-All-Star break, we saw the peak of what like he could be. An around 900 OPS, an RBI machine. And then the second half, we saw his flaws and kind of what he still needs to improve on in order to reach his peak for a full season or longer. So in 2026, I still believe in the player. I know a lot of people are really frustrated with him. I saw a ton of comments last year from fans about how they think, I mean, there was a lot of people that are just like, this dude's straight up not good and he shouldn't be counted on for anything. And he's, selling out for like 36 homers and not bringing anything else. His OBP was the lowest it's been in his entire career. Like all of these things are true. And yeah, like they got upset and people jumped off, the Riley Greene, bandwagon or ship, if you will, that kind of he had been building since his minor league career through 2024. But he still does so much right. He had one of the highest barrel rates in baseball last season. He has incredible pop to all fields. He doesn't have to pull to get his power. He has 40-plus home run ceiling. He has top 10 RBI in baseball ceiling. He has walked a lot before. He just didn't in 2025. And I think most importantly, this is not a 32-year-old. This dude, last year was his age 24 season. Wyatt Langford is 24. Like there are minor leaguers that are very highly regarded that will be rookies at 24 or even 25. For him to have accomplished at what he has up to this point before turning 25, this year will be his age 25 season, obviously, it is just like he's making adjustments and growing as a player. And look, if this is what he is going to be forever, and he's just a 3-win player that sells completely out for power and just hacks and doesn't do anything else, then yeah, that isn't a franchise player. I agree with that. I am saying that I refuse to give up on a player that is still so young and has this many tools and has the raw talent that we have seen from him just because of one step back year. Like this isn't like, oh, he's been doing this for all 5 seasons. His 2024 was a pretty darn solid, well-rounded, age 23/24 year. So he had a bad season before he can even rent a car in the United States. I say we probably see this out and see if he can improve. Swing less, like he did his entire career before 2025, be much more selective on pitches, and we'll see where 2026 takes us. But I think this still could be a really big season for him. Okay. Riley Greene breakdown. Done. Let's talk about, and that's like tip of the iceberg, to be honest with you. There's plenty of stuff we can talk about with his approach against lefties. There's plenty of stuff we can talk about in terms of kind of like the breaking balls and how when he did hit them, he hit them way better, but he also swung and missed at them still a lot. His effectiveness against off speed is pretty like below average, I would say. So there's still plenty more to discuss, but that's just like on a base level. That's what I'm looking for early in the season. I want to see the Riley Greene that's far more selective with what he's choosing to do damage with and swing at, because we just didn't see that at all in 2025. Let's talk about news and notes from around the league. Okay, we'll do that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Yeah, like I said, like I read my own comments. I'm aware that there's probably a handful of people that are just completely out on Riley Greene. There's nothing he can really do to, at least there's nothing I can say, maybe I should say, to change your mind. And that's totally fine. I'm not here to like, talk down on people with different opinion or whatever. I try to never do that. And I try to make that point clear as well as often as I can. I just think it's important to get, paint a full picture and realize that there's still a lot here at such a young age. And he's a guy that if he left the Tigers, everybody in the fan base would be like, oh, he's totally going to hit like 50 homers and win an MVP now. Like everyone would say that if they were to trade him. But because he's the guy that we're building around, they're going to be super critical of him. And we'll see. I'm not sure he's like ever going to be the bona fide best player on a championship team, but I still think he has the highest ceiling of anybody currently on the roster, position player wise, at least. And that, will change when McGonigal gets promoted and whatever. MLB news from the weekend. Very busy weekend around baseball. Kyle Tucker with $60 million a year to play for the Los Angeles Dodgers for 4 years. Absolutely wild. That is insane money I was talking about how 50 was crazy last week, and now he gets 60. The Dodgers, I mean, they have one of the best lineups I've ever seen in my entire life. They have one of the best rotations I've ever seen in my life when they're all healthy, when all of their starting pitchers are at full health. And then the bullpen, which was kind of their Achilles heel a little bit last year, like they went out and signed Edwin Diaz. So, yeah, like they're really good. And I think that the Kyle Tucker signing, in my eyes, was kind of like the final nail in the coffin of like, there's going to be a lockout. And their CBA ends, I believe, in November, end of November or early December. So we'll definitely have a lockout going into the new year, going into the 2027 calendar year. That being said, it's really a question of how bad is it going to be and how long is it going to last, and will we miss a good chunk of games? I mean, again, after stuff like this, I think it's certainly on the table, right? The most owners are going to ask for a salary cap. More than half of the owners will ask for a salary cap, and so that will be kind of their position. And then the players will completely refuse, and so that leaves MLB in a big question in regards to its 2027 season. So let's enjoy 2026 while we still have it. Bichette also signs with the New York Mets. We'll talk about lockout stuff and all the ins and outs of that as we get closer to the actual lockout happening. I'm not going to spend every single day this calendar year talking about how there's going to be a lockout. I'm going to focus on the game that's in front of us. Okay, just to make that clear, I've been on this show during a lockout before. It looks like I'm going to do it again. So like we're seasoned at this point. Okay, and we will talk plenty about all the ins and outs with that when the time comes. In terms of the Mets, Bichette getting $42 million a year is diabolical to me. I am very glad that my baseball team did not do this. And we talked about Bichette earlier in the offseason, right? Look, he would make a lot of teams better immediately. And I think he made the Mets better immediately. I think him at third base is better than like Brett Baty or whatever situation they were going to have over there at third. But I think his profile like ages poorly, and they've kind of nerfed that a little bit by putting him at third and not leaving him at shortstop, where he has just always been a terrible defender. But I would not pursue him as a free agent aggressively enough to give him over $40 million a year. That is unreal to me. Now, from the Mets' perspective, they swung and missed on free agents all winter, and they want to make sure that they at least got one. And I think that was kind of the mindset. Like, we're leaving here with something, right? Like, we're not going to walk out of here completely empty-handed. I don't care how much it costs. Go get a big name that we can, that makes the team better. And that's what they got. Now, the flip side to that, to piggyback off that, is does this mean that Brett Baty's available? So former first-round pick, a former, top, certainly at one point, top 50 prospect in baseball. He's a third baseman. He's 26 years old, which, again, is like a testament to Riley Greene's age. He's coming off his age 24 season. Brett Baty, people are talking about like, oh, get a young, controllable player that might end up being really good. He's 26, okay? And his first two seasons in MLB, he did not hit a lick, dude. He was... We're talking, for his rookie year was a sub 600 OPS. Now, he kind of put it together for the first time in 2025. He had solid defense. I think he can be a 20 home run guy in a full season. There's a lot to like with the concept of that. The issue is it's another lefty. And look, if you want to bring him in and you just want Brett Baty to be the new third baseman every day, and he plays 160 plus, 150 plus games there, then so be it. But him being a lefty, because then him being a lefty doesn't really matter. But unless you're trading away Colt Keith for him, then you're really like, if you don't trade Colt Keith in that move or in some move, then he has nowhere to play in 2026 until Gleyber Torres is gone. Their OPSs were within 2 points of each other last year, and Colt Keith is 2 years younger. Look, if you like the player more, then you like the player more. And that's just kind of like you just shrug sometimes at player analysis and you're like, hey, if you like a guy, you like a guy. Like that's there's nothing I can really say to that. But I'm not sure it's really worth it. I think there's a real argument that Colt Keith still has a higher ceiling than Brett Baty does. And at this point in their careers, at least. And so, like, you might as well just see what you have in Colt Keith. I'm not sure you, like, immediately change the trajectory of your infield significantly by doing that. I think that's just doing a move just to do it. I would honestly rather just see how Colt Keith does there in a full season. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back on Wednesday as we continue our off-season content. We'll be at 3 episodes a week for the rest of January. And then in February, when pitchers and catchers report and camp starts and spring training starts, we'll be back to 5 episodes a week. All right. We're also going to have a mailbag either at the end of this week or next week. Do not put your questions in this episode. I will not see them for the mailbag. I will not see them. They will not go into the filter of anything. Okay, so save them, and I'll announce later in the week when the mailbag is going to be. Okay, cool. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I appreciate you all greatly. Go Tigers, baby.